Hello. Today I'm going to talk about some changes I made within the analyzer. These changes should address some problems with getting into the settings menu where the analyzer has locked up and not functioned recently. I'm on a blank chart right now, just pulled up a particular coin I was working on earlier, and I'm going to just put something together to see where it all falls in line. Nothing spectacular, a quick, easy combination. Let's just start with J.R. Ling. Now I'm not going to make any real changes to it. There's not going to be anything over the top. I'm just going to actually leave the settings the way they are. Just default. And I'll put it up on the main chart for now. And peg it to scale A. Okay, so here we are, pretty much cookie cutter style. Nothing spectacular about it. Now let's go get the analyzer so I can demonstrate some of the new changes. Okay, now I don't need the analyzer itself because everything I need to talk about is right here. Notice the background is now red. When you load the analyzer now, it starts disabled or inactive. One of the problems I discovered through detailed diagnostics is that it tried to analyze raw data that came into it, even when it wasn't set up properly. And that would often cause it to lock up. So now you have to actually enable it for it to function properly. The other thing I did is I pre-filled all of this with my usual basic startup functions. So this is all now default that you can change as you would like. So now we are going to enable it. Going to pick the signal source first. This must be done right away. Then you'll notice the ending year is 1900. You can be exact or you can just put 2100 and it will automatically kick in. I've also set the default shorting to no. Now you'll notice a few extra lines. This blue line and this green line. That corresponds with the trade cycles count and the average running profit. Unfortunately, TradingView does not allow me to set up where I can disable unwanted data right away. So you have to uncheck it here. But in order for it to be used in your messages, it has to be in this menu. And TradingView provides a couple of variables for your messages called plot_0 and plot_1, where you can actually set this up as an alert for your selling, and it will give you an email message that will track continually your running average profit and the number of trade cycles that you need or that has occurred. And of course, the maximum number of buys per a single run. So now this information can be put in an alert to give you even more detailed analysis. And when the analyzer is running, of course, the background will be green. So here we have ETH. If you want to set up your alert, then you set it up the way you would normally would. Okay, there we are. I'm simply going to say send email if you want, so forth. Now here you have a bunch of stuff. It takes a little bit of time getting used to the analyzer, but the alert information is no different than any other information you have. Here's your basic message. Here's all of the basic things you can plug into it. This section talks about plot 0, plot 1. These are the kind of things that you want to read about. So let's just set up a basic information. Now, right here, order action is either buy or sell. So let's get rid of all this junk. Let's get rid of all this junk. So now, ticker, which will be this up here. Order action is buy or sell. The closing price of the order if you want it. The average price of the order. And we can actually spell this out. Since we're doing an email, we can take advantage of more information. So now when you make your alert, when this particular system happens, you will get a message that tells you all of this information appropriate. It will continue to accumulate and run this information each and every trade. So this average becomes a long-term average that will continue to build even after you've made this alert. So even though the chart might say 69 at the moment, a month from now, you might get a message saying that your trade cycle count might be 300 because it will be running on the back end server of TradingView, giving you a long-term projection. So this is just one of many ways. And I will be building a sandbox within the support server that runs this type of analysis on a long term for many of the various algorithms and recipes that I have created, so you can see long term how things will function. So let's see how this works with other situations. Let's simply go back up to the top. And it is important to remember that this can be a negative value. If it is a negative value, it means you are losing money. The other thing to be aware of is this figure does not take into account your exchange fees. I opted not to consider exchange fees at this point because there's simply some things I cannot encounter, like slippage or whether or not you get a full order condition. For example, if your order is set to 11 USDT and your exchange only gives you 10.23 USDT. I have no way of actually knowing that. So I opted for just a very basic, rough average profit basis solely on the calculations from the chart. Now, the thing that I want to emphasize is while this says an average profit and this says a negative profit, I am more inclined to consider this value more accurate. But because there is a discrepancy, it means you should consider more aggressive testing. It is important to understand that this figure only calculates on the basis of actual trade cycles. A trade cycle is the starting buy position to the final in position. In this case, you see it here. Let's zoom this in. And I have found these numbers to be fairly consistent by doing hand analysis. You see here the purchases, here the selling point. So reasonably speaking, this is a rough estimate that is more accurate, in my opinion, than what these numbers are, as I base the actual running average on this information here. But nonetheless, there is absolutely no shortcut for detailed analysis and diagnostics. So this will now give you a back testing principle and a forward testing principle. So, as I said, this is pre-filled appropriately. This is disabled by default. Your end year will always be 1900 by default when you first start the analyzer before you have configured it. Always configure your signal source first. That way it creates real information. The other thing that's been added to the analyzer, it is now capable of analyzing historic data as well as live data to keep it in line with all of the other modules. So let's begin looking around at a few coins to see the state and transition that you may encounter. Now, sometimes if you end up with over 9,000 trades, it will break the analyzer. That is a problem within TradingView itself. Let's see if we can reduce this a little bit by breaking some of the unnecessary stuff. And you can see various things here. Let's go ahead and add dollar cost averaging. So we'll move this up. Now we'll move it to a new pane. And now we will connect it to JR-Link itself. Okay, I'm going to set this to strategy mode. And I'm going to leave this at a 1-to-1, just to give it some dynamic behavior. So now let's disable the signal line. Have to remember to do that. Okay, and now we will connect the analyzer to the dollar cost averaging module. And now you have 28 trade cycles with an average profit of 1.8%. So as you can see, it does fairly consistent and good. Your maximum count per cycle is 20 purchases. So somewhere within one cycle, it made 20 purchases to average the price down. Of course, you can go back and keep the analysis and see exactly when and where it made the purchases. You can also, of course, tune your dollar cost averaging appropriately. So now let's tune it the way I normally would, with a 2-to-2 ratio. Now let's see how it has an impact on the numbers. So we've gone from 28 trade cycles down to 20 trade cycles, and our average profit is now 2.7%. Now let's compare it to what this says. This says it completed 59 trades. Actual number of trades on what the chart was capable of loading is only 20. So I would not trust these numbers. These numbers, I believe, are more accurate. So I'm simply going to get rid of this. And now let's go down and look at a few other coins. As you can see, you have a good way of looking at everything in one nice, neat little bundle. And you can find coins that do good or bad. Let's go to a framework that I have set up, where I have done some changes already. Okay. Let's make sure the analyzer is on the stop loss in this case. So in this case, the analyzer says I'm going to make 2% for 4 trade cycles. We're going to go down and see just how this pans out. See if I can find a coin that's actually going to lose money. And right here we have a coin that lost 12% in 2 trades. Again, I would trust this value because this value fits the reality of 2 lost trades. So let's backtrack it and see where our lost trades took place. So it says it lost a trade here. So that's the first lost trade. And it lost a wicked trade here. So it looks like it lost the 12% really in one big trade. And then the second loss was just change. So by verifying your charts, you can see that this really does match the chart data, more so than the analyzer's results. Now the analyzer only says it lost $1.37. I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter. It's a loss. In my book, that's a reason not to want to trade this coin, at least not with a stop loss. Now, if we were to evaluate it with a dollar cost averaging, we see that it hasn't completed a single trade cycle yet within the dollar cost averaging to be profitable. Another reason to simply not want to deal with this particular coin. So, let's move on to some more coins. Another loss. Now this is a 2% profit. Another loss. So, the new analyzer can help you without actually even using the strategy testing mechanism. And quite frankly, it may be more accurate in the long term than the strategy testing mechanism. And remember, you can set up an email if you're testing a particular recipe combination using the plot 0, plot 1 to actually watch this recipe in the long term to see how well it's going to do for an average basis. This may be very important if you're using a stop loss and you want to track when the market starts turning against you and you start seeing an average negative loss. So there are a lot of different ways to use this new mechanism. It's just a matter of picking the way that best fits your situation. Whether forward testing or back testing, be sure to pay attention to the details. In this case, the average profit is 0.3%. I know my fees are 0.2%. I know this is not going to be very profitable. But yet, if I want to come down to a coin that has been talked about lately, well, it might need to be talked about a little more. Even with 2 wins, the 1 loss tanked your profit. That is something to be aware of. You can lose even for winning if you have a big enough loss. Now, can this coin turn around? Of course it can. Can it get worse? Well, yes, it can. So you want to pay attention to all of the nuances. Don't just look at one time frame. Look at the profit on every time frame before you decide to trade it. And you might even want to trade dollar cost averaging versus stop loss. You could, for example, create 2 different alerts, tracking both of them to see which one in the long run is going to be best suited for your risk assessment. Okay, let's come to another little recipe. And here we go again. 2 trades. And those 2 trades made a 7% profit. And that is accurate if you actually look. at the various charts. For example, if you backtrack into the chart, let's zoom this in so we can move quicker. Okay, here we go. And it's easy to see how you got a 7% profit. So, it's real easy to see. Here is the profit target. Here is the actual price action for the sell marker. So, this is definitely right on with the actual price action. Strategy tester, not so much. It says 14 trades. There's only 2 trade cycles here. And I'll bet if I go back through the history, I'm only going to see 2 trade cycles. So as you work on your recipes, bear in mind, this will probably be a better choice to follow. You will need to update any recipe that has the analyzer on to get this new information. Until next time.